ready? Right, this is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and we're at the BBC, as we are most years, I think going back for about 15-16 years since we became active in the UK in this cause. Our gripe with the BBC is that it conceals a lot of information the public needs to know, and we suspect that the BBC was complicit in a cover-up of the real facts of 9/11, and I just want to find out from this lady who she is, who is in front of me with a visual. Hello.
Don't worry about her.
I'm going to... Shall I carry on?
Yeah, of course.
Carry on, okay, sorry. She looked as though she was coming across to have a word with me. Okay. Right, so we're here because obviously this is the main media of this country, been going for as long as TV and radio have been going, and a very important medium it is too, very educational. I enjoy a lot of the BBC programmes. I think it's a very valuable resource for the world, and they put out incredible materials, broadcasts. But unfortunately has a double role of actually controlling the information that the public will get to hear, and that's my gripe with it, and that of other people in our campaign or movement as it is by now. I think we can say safely that this is the 9/11 truth movement of this country. Not out in great numbers today because people are doing things all over the place. So, but anyway, we all are a presence here at the BBC most years, and this year is an important year because the 20th anniversary is a milestone. So, why do we need the truth about 9/11? Sometimes people ask me that because they know I'm a campaigner about truth. One of my main values and my main preoccupations is the opposite of truth, which is lies, misinformation, and downright deception and cover-ups. I don't like that at all. I don't think anybody really in this country who could call themselves a normal Brit or a normal member of our multicultural society would say that they like being conned or taken for a ride, or having the wool pulled over their eyes, or not knowing what's actually going on. On the other hand, there are quite a lot of ordinary decent citizens who, like in every generation, are just leading their lives, their everyday lives, getting through their day, trying to feed their children, trying to keep their house together, have a bit of fun, and trying to be kind to their neighbours. And good luck to them too. You know, if they don't take up this cudgel against what could be seen as a secret cabal in the world, that's endangering us. I think it really is, and I think it's making itself more and more obvious as the days go by, and more people are becoming aware of it. But I don't blame people who just want to live an ordinary, decent life and do as much good as they can do and look after their families and their friends and their neighbours. That's fine, absolutely fine. But certain of us have taken on a wider responsibility, which is to tell the public that either things are going well and things are improving and we are moving towards a more civilized world, or conversely, that things are deteriorating and we're moving downhill towards some kind of totalitarian situation where people's freedoms will be gradually eroded, and by the time of the next 10 years we may have no freedoms at all. And how are they doing this? By various operations and ways of conducting foreign policy and domestic policy that's been going on in this country at least for 200 years. And I date it back, in fact, to the New World Order that was established in 1776. In fact, before I became a 9/11 Truth campaigner, I was campaigning against the New World Order, because I found out about that when I first started going on the internet in the 90s, and I found it very sinister and very, very disturbing. And so before I was a truth campaigner for 9/11, I was against the New World Order. But people in the 90s didn't know about the New World Order. And this is the creepy thing. It's been going on for by now nearly 200 years at that time, and it's now into its 245th year. No, it's not right either. I get muddled with the years. You're going to cut this bit, Derek.
No.
Anyway, New World Order agenda was from 1776, when it was launched, to 260 years later, 2036, when it's supposed to be in place. And it's a world system, a system of world government, and it looks as though it's going to be totalitarian, and it's going to completely overtake all the freedoms and liberties that we enjoy today, which are dwindling, I'm afraid, at a rapid rate. So it's a very sinister thing, but it will be a global system. All countries are already being brought into it. All countries by now are involved in it. The top politicians of all countries are signed up to it. And this is the dangerous thing, because now in the 21st century we have a scenario of nation states being sort of separate and sort of individual, but all joined at the top by a kind of transnational, international cabal, all pursuing the same agenda, which is this New World Order. And I think it's Freemasonic, and I think members of secret societies pass on some of its more, shall we say, sinister programs to each other in secret meetings every year, such as the Bilderberg Group, the Bohemian Grove Group, and the World Economic Forum at Davos in the winter. So there are these meetings that are known about, and we don't know exactly what goes on in some of the more secret sides of those meetings, but we know a little bit about what they discuss. And they plan out basically what they're going to do for the next year, and it's all according to this agenda. So when we get to the 21st century, a new era starts. From 1776 to the end of the 20th century, I think you could safely say that the world domination or regime agenda, preceded by wars, revolutions, by ideological movements, by all kinds of events that happened that were very distressing, and events that people would prefer not to have had to be witness to. But once we get over into this new century and into this new millennium, and century particularly is the key thing, because we're now in the last countdown to the installation of the New World Order. Once we get into this century, things start to escalate downhill very quickly, because we're having terrorist attacks orchestrated at the highest levels of states, organizations, with members of several intelligence services collaborating together. And it's all again to bring in the New World Order. So the intelligence services work together on operations, and the first one that they orchestrated was the 9/11 attacks on New York and the Pentagon, and they would have done possibly the Capitol in Washington as well, only that flight went astray. And since then, we've had a whole string of other, what are called, in the vernacular, false flag events, where a horrific incident is stage managed and comes into operation, and then the wrong people are blamed for it. So in the case of 9/11, it's obviously the Muslim peoples who are blamed for that operation. So the 19 Muslim hijackers, the Bin Laden Saudi family based in Afghanistan, and then we have very soon afterwards a whole string of wars starting on the back of that event. So 2003, the invasion of Iraq, then going on down the line through Libya, then Syria, Lebanon, of course, and there are about 7 countries that were on the checklist to be dealt with in this first part of the 21st century. And we're now, funnily enough today, we've been alongside an Iranian demonstration. And so Iran is on the list as the last country in line to be dealt with. And they've done Afghanistan, unfortunately. Poor Afghanistan, dumped, left, and out in the cold, left with one of the most repressive Muslim governments, the Taliban. And said to be now, going forwards, possibly a breeding ground for a resurgence of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and nameless other Muslim terrorist groups. So it's getting quite serious now. And while all that's going on the international front, we have this pandemic. So I don't want to go on about the pandemic, but I just want to say you have to look at everything that happens, the terrorist events that characterize the first 20 years of this new century, all of them. I happen to be friendly with a lot of Japanese people and spent some time in Japan, and of course the Fukushima typhoon, tsunami, and the attack on the eastern coast of Japan was a particularly grievous event for me personally, with my friends out there. And there's a whole string of them, and I don't need to go on about them, but the point is they all go back to the original global plan, the deep state global plan of the New World Order. So, what can we do? Well, the first thing we can do is open our minds. And this is why it's so important to be a little bit educated about all these things, but also we can't get too bogged down in the detail of them, but we do have to know why they happen. So if we know that there is this long-term program to so-called bring the world under one government, then it all starts to make a bit of sense. It makes a sense from their point of view. It's not a happily and reassuring scenario, because obviously the violence and the terror and the destruction of human life and the fear of more terrorism and the fear of more repression and more sanctions and all the things that oppress people is very, very strong in a lot of people. So they just like to keep their head down and try to not get too involved in it. But a few courageous people will do their homework and find out how all these terrorist events have happened. And if they know, as I'm trying to tell people all the time, and I've been at it since the late 90s, that there is this agenda, and its latest ramifications are Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. If they know there is this agenda, then everything that happens seems to make a very dark and sinister kind of sense. And once you realise that, then you're not shocked by anything. The first thing is you get reassurance in your mind that there is a logic to it, that you know what's going on. You don't have to be told, oh, this is another one, this shooting was done by this other group and it's a false flag. You don't have to be told that there's something fishy about the way that hotel collapsed, or about the way that suddenly there's some geophysical event, such as a tsunami in the Southeast Asian region. You don't have to be told anything, because these unnatural disasters and these so-called terrorist events are the way that things are proceeding in this century, and with the wars in the Middle East as well. And what's at the back of it all is a mindset which is quite, I think, quite dangerous. We have to be aware that the people orchestrating this new regime, if you like, for the whole world are not of the same mindset as the normal humans. In fact, I would say they've compromised their humanity, right? So now, what has come out of this that's good? What has come out of it that's really good is the truth movement, right? We're just doing 9/11 today. We haven't even got as far as the London bombings or the rest of the events that have taken place over the last 20 years. But the truth movement is definitely something that's alive and well in the world, and it gives me great hope that the more people who have the courage to actually look at what's going on, to put the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, join the dots, and construe that yes, what was happening in Nazi Germany in the 30s is now happening on a global scale. That yes, the totalitarian regimes of Russia and China in the 80s, in the 40s and 80s, were a forerunner of what's going to be happening today. And if we know, and if we understand the truth, we have a sort of peace of mind. I can absolutely promise you that it is all fearful, but you have peace of mind because you understand, and you're no longer being conned, taken for a ride, and made to feel frightened because you don't really understand what's going on, so you prefer not to go there. Once you understand what's really going on, it's peace of mind, and I don't say it's comfortable, and you have to do something about it, and you have a responsibility to do something about it, because so many people don't have the courage. So you have to go on, and we have to go on with this movement. Now I'd like to declare that the 20th anniversary of 9/11, since this was the major event that kickstarted the whole process, should be a year of truth. We need a lot more truth in this year because we have a major pandemic going on, don't we? We need really everybody to examine that critically and to see whether in fact it's as benign as institutions like that one over there make us try to believe that it is. Oh, if you have your jabs, go and have your jabs and then have your boosters and carry on having your boosters because of all the variants and mutations of the original virus, to be honest. Go and have your jabs and everything's going to be all right. And oh yes, we should get the children vaccinated now because then they won't be at risk. Well, the children don't need it because 99% of them don't get COVID. So that's very questionable and worries a lot of parents. But anyway, those sorts of directives from, I hope, some good people in there, but some not so good people, would be, I mean, I think most of the staff at the BBC are good people. I had a friend working in the BBC a few years back, a couple of decades back, and around the time of the Jimmy Savile scandal, when that broke, I asked this friend of mine who worked 10 years in the BBC, how was Jimmy Savile so friendly with everybody in there and none of you could do anything about it? And she said to me, well, we all knew about it. You know, there were whispers in the canteen and, you know, we all knew what was going on, but we were told there was nothing we could do because the people behind Savile were so important and so powerful. There's nothing we could do. Well, that's not good enough, is it? Right? We need to actually know a bit more about what goes on behind the scenes. We need people to inform. We need whistleblowers. Whistleblowers and people who break ranks, particularly professional people with qualifications. We should applaud them if they break their professional ranks to tell us that what's happening in the hospitals is not as it should be. And all those whistleblowers need to be applauded as heroic. And there are quite a few active in the context of this pandemic. So truth leads to understanding, and truth leads to comprehension of things in the round. Truth leads to peace of mind, but above all, truth should lead to action.
And victory.
What?
And victory.
And victory. Okay, thank you. It's a good note to end. So I declare this year a new year of truth on the 20th anniversary of the events of 9/11. Thank you.